Let's have a nice cup of TRE in the afternoon with Hannah Murray.
Joining us on the line now is Rolf Dobelli, a Swiss writer, novelist and entrepreneur. His latest book is The Not To-Do List, The Surprisingly Simple Art of Success, where he reveals the habits that world's most successful people avoid at all costs. Welcome to the show, Rolf.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, it's great to have you with us. And I love the concept of a not to-do list. How did you come up with it?
It's actually not my idea. It's an idea that an investor from the US, Charlie Munger is his name. He's kind of the right-hand man of the famous investor Warren Buffett. He gave a talk at Harvard in 1986. And usually when you give a talk to students, you tell all the great stuff that they need to do so you're going to be successful. But he turned it around and he titled the talk, How to Guarantee a Life of Misery, so you can avoid these things. And I thought this is such a brilliant idea, this inversion, that I thought it's useful to do that too. And I tried it with 52 ideas and it seemed to work.
Yeah. So how did you come up with the ideas? It's a mixture of your own experiences and talking to experts, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are 52 things you should avoid in life. There's probably more things you should avoid in life, but 52 stand out. And I had the idea in mind to write this book for my kids once they kind of turn 20 years old or 25 and make their way into adult life. And I wanted to tell them, just avoid these 52 things and you're going to have an okay life. Not necessarily the best, but at least you come through life okay. And this is a mixture of research, personal experience, reading a lot, reading especially a lot about failures. If you read the newspapers, you hear a lot about successes, but you have to dig deeper to find stories of failures, and that's what I collect, and that's what I wrote about.
Yeah. So are there things in common generally with failure stories? People who fail, are they making similar mistakes?
Yeah, they're all making similar mistakes. So I just give you an example. One is be unreliable. If you're unreliable, no matter how talented you are or how smart you are or how rich you are, or if you come from the best parents, eventually you'll fail. Eventually you fall down. Might be 10 years after you started, maybe 30 years after you started. I know so many brilliant people who are not reliable and they kind of fall down. But then on the other hand, I know tons of people who are not the smartest, who didn't have the best grade in school, who didn't go to elite universities, but they're just reliable people and they make it very well through life. So reliability is a success factor that people don't talk about much because it's not particularly sexy to talk about reliability. But to be reliable is one of those things that keep you afloat. And if you're unreliable, you eventually fail.
Yeah.
So this is one of those 52 not to do things.
Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? I think we can all think of people who we've maybe referred to as unreliable in our lives. And yes, it's not a nice thing. You wouldn't want to be seen as unreliable yourself, I don't think.
Exactly. If you're unreliable, people stop working with you.
Yeah.
You might be as brilliant as you can, but eventually people just don't want to work with you anymore. And that's when you fall. And the other thing is true too. If you're super reliable and you hold your word and you do what you promise to do, then people want to work with you. And then life becomes much easier and much more successful.
Yeah. What are some of the other examples career-wise that you can share?
Yeah. So one is to have, one of the not to do things is to have high expectations. To have high expectations, then you set yourself up for disappointment. The best thing is to have no expectations at all. You just try your best, but have no expectations, or have very low expectations. And this is true for your career. This is true for your relationships, for your marriage. Actually, Charlie Munger, who I referred to in the past, he has this wonderful quote. That what is the what makes a marriage successful? Is it people who are smart or beautiful people, or is it money? No, it's have low expectations, especially the other person has to have low expectations towards you, because then you obviously surpass those expectations and it's going to be fine. So don't keep your expectations up high. I try to live without expectations at all. I just try to give my best and then see where it goes, because the factor of high expectations just disappoints you and makes your life miserable.
Yeah, I bet everyone can relate to moments like that, either in business or relationships or friendships. Or family members. You know, it comes up all the time, doesn't it? If you're expecting a lot and you don't get it, you're disappointed. It does sound a bit sad though to have low expectations of everybody all the time. It is a shame that's something that we need to do.
No, I think it liberates you to have low expectations. It's a liberating fact. You can still shoot for the stars, but don't have those expectations. Psychologically, you set yourself a set point, and then if you stay below, you're just sad. But if you just shoot for the stars and you give your best, without expectations, I think life is better. Another one of the not to do things is to set the wrong goals. So some people set themselves really stupid goals. For example, I always see people who want to look young until they're 100 years old. I mean, eventually people age. You look old, and there's nothing to stop you, no matter how many operations or how many supplements you're taking. You have to accept that you're getting old. And people set themselves the goal of living forever, for example, or they have a goal of popularity. They want to be the most popular person on the planet, a YouTube star, a social media star. These are stupid goals. They make you miserable eventually. And a lot of those things you can't really achieve. A lot of it is dependent on luck. 99% of this is dependent on luck. And if you try to look young until you're 100 years old, that's just going to happen. So you're going to just set yourself up for disappointment to set the wrong goals.
Yeah. And do a lot of these things kind of travel across all different areas? Are there a lot that apply for both work life, family life, and relationships?
Yeah, it's usually the case that they carry through all the domains. One other one is to say yes to everything. So you have a request, somebody requests something. Can you have time for this, or do you have time for this? And people want to be pleasing. So the first reaction is always to say yes, because, we want to be nice to people, but eventually people will tear you in so many different directions that you lose control over your own life. So, to say yes to everything is a really bad strategy, and you should avoid that. So you should be very careful what you say yes to, then do those very few things right, and politely say no to all the other requests.
That's definitely a liberating one. I've experienced that for sure. You want to say yes because you feel bad, whether it's somebody's birthday or you want to help out with something or whatever it might be. So many different scenarios. But saying no politely, you don't need to be rude, is absolutely liberating. And so often when I've said no to something that I've been concerned about having the time to do, or the inclination or the money or whatever, as soon as you say no, I can instantly feel this weight lifted off my shoulders, and you think, that really wasn't that difficult, was it?
Yeah, and especially if a request comes from for a time period a lot in the future. So let's say somebody asks if you could help them move houses in 6 months from now. And your calendar is pretty empty now, looking in 6 months from now, but you know exactly that it's going to be full in that week once you approach that day. So be especially careful to say yes when these dates are way in the future, because right now it looks empty, your calendar, but I guarantee you that week or that day is going to be full with just you living your life.
Yeah.
Another one that I like to mention often is try to change people. So trying to change people is a no-go. It should be on your not to-do list. You can change yourself a little bit, but trying to change other people, it's just impossible. And a lot of people go into a relationship, or be it at work or privately, where they think, I'm going to change that person around, or going to kind of change the character of that person. Totally impossible. Don't even try. You're just going to frustrate yourself.
Yeah. It's a tricky one. I think, we all know that, you can't change other people. You can only change yourself, but it can be difficult, can't it? Whether it's difficult people who you work with, issues within a relationship, issues within family. We all have issues that go on with people that we know and spend time with regularly. And it can be tricky if you're going through the same patterns with that person, and you're thinking, why can't they be more like this? Or why do they always have to be like that? And you can, I guess, make polite suggestions. But if they don't change, there's kind of nothing you can do about it. You have to deal with it.
They won't change. You can try as nicely as you want. They won't change. So either you just accept. The best thing is just, accept the other person. They have different, personalities, and you just accept it. And if it really doesn't work, for example, on the job, then you just need to either you get yourself out of that situation, or kind of try to get that other person out of the situation. Either accept it or change the situation, but you cannot change other people. It just doesn't work. The worst thing is to marry somebody with the intention of trying to change that person.
Oh, yeah.
Don't even try. Not happening.
Oh, dear. And what about the ideas of listening to your inner voice? You talk about that in the book.
Yeah, that's another one that should be on your not to-do list. A lot of people think your inner voice is some sort of a compass that guides you through life, kind of an internal GPS system. But it's not. If you listen to your inner voice, first of all, it's several different voices. They contradict each other. They say something in the morning. They say something completely different in the afternoon. They say something last year, and they say something different in the future. It's a chaos. It's a cacophony, and you shouldn't listen to your inner voice. And you shouldn't use this as your internal GPS. What should you use as your internal GPS? You should use things where you are very, very good at, skills where you're above average. This gives you a guidance where you should develop yourself more into. So let's say you are super great at, writing books, or you're super great at interviewing people. Let's take you. You're super great at interviewing people. Then this gives you, and if you look back in the history of your life, and you've been great, you've been above average all the time in this is truly something you should focus on and become better and better and better at. No matter what your inner voice says. If your inner voice says, okay, I want to become a painter, but you haven't really painted, or your results are shitty, and you don't have a good track record, don't do it. No matter how loudly your inner voice screams. So look at your track, and this gives you a great direction in life. And this goes into something that is actually a bigger theme. This is what I call the circle of competence. It's again not my idea. It's an older idea. But to be successful in life, you need to find something where you're way above average. Because we have a globalized world, the competition is very heavy, and you want to be somewhere where you're above average. You don't want to be average or below average, because you're going to lose in life. So you want to develop those skills where you're very identifiably above average, and you have been over average in the track of the past. That's where you want to focus. You want to become better, and ideally you want to become the best person at this in the world. And there's a there is one more thing to this puzzle on this circle of competence. The income of somebody who is way above average compared to somebody who is average is not like 10% better or 50% better. It's sometimes 1,000% higher, the income. For example, a software engineer who is really great compared to an average software engineer makes 1,000 times that money. The same thing is with a lawyer. So you have really an exponential curve by becoming the best in the world.
Yeah, that makes sense. The thing that sort of came to my mind when you were saying that is how some people don't see themselves as they actually are. You know, there'll be some people who will be really self-critical and will think, oh no, I'm not that great at that, because they're used to putting themselves down, and others who are the opposite, who are quite happy to shout from the rooftops, yeah, I'm the best at what I do. I'm brilliant. I'm, overconfident and maybe aren't actually that great. So it might be, depending on the industry, it might be quite difficult to work out how good you really are compared to the rest of the world at your job.
Yeah, and that's where honest friends come in. Honest friends should tell you the truth and not what you like to hear. And cultivate those friends who tell you the truth, because they really help you excel. But the overconfidence that you just mentioned is a really critical factor in most people. Most people are overconfident. They think they're better than they actually are. They think they're faster. They think they're smarter. And overconfidence just is one of those big cognitive hurdles that we have to try to overcome. I have overconfidence too, still, after having written about this in many books and for many years. It's just deeply ingrained in us. I try to see myself realistically, but still that overconfidence is just deeply hardwired in almost everybody's brain. Unless you are clinically depressed, you're going to be overconfident. People who are clinically depressed, they see themselves roughly as their skills as objective.
Yeah. And just going back to the inner voice thing, how would you describe the difference between your inner voice, which we shouldn't listen to, and your gut instinct, which we're constantly told that we should listen to?
Well, that's the same thing. The inner voice or the gut instinct, it's the same thing. It's not to be trusted. Unless you have a situation that evolutionarily we've had to deal with for 50,000 or 100,000 years. So, for example, if I meet you, can I trust you or not? That's a question that even our ancestors in the Stone Age had to make. So this is a gut feeling that we can trust.
Yeah.
But in the modern world, there are very, very little of these situations that we also had in the Stone Age. So most of the things we can't trust. We shouldn't trust our inner voice or our gut feel. There is another place where you can trust your gut feel, and that's when you have experience, and your experience dates back for 20 years. You've been doing something for 20 years. You know exactly what's going to work and what's not going to work, and when something seems fishy. So that's when you can trust your intuition. Yeah. But in novel situation, let's say financial markets or internet, or anything that has to deal with the modern situation and is a new situation for you, and you don't have 10 or 20 years experience, don't trust your gut feel. Think about it. Think it through.
Interesting. Well, if people want to get a copy of The Not To-Do List, The Surprisingly Simple Art of Success, it's available on our website, TRE.radio, and it's by Rolf Dobelli, who we've been chatting with today. Rolf, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much.